All right, welcome everyone. Part 3 of the Peryton character series here. We've got our mesh, and I brought in a meta rig that I've already prepared for a different version of this character that I made. I actually made 2 almost complete versions of this week just to be ready for this stream, so I knew how to do everything that I want to get done in this one. The meta rig is kind of slapped together from different parts. The body is from the horse, pre-built meta rig. The wings are from the bird, and the tail is from the bird as well. The rear legs are bird feet, so I had to kind of mess around with the bones because they're not the same leg bones as the horse. And then the head is actually the wolf head, so we don't have these placed yet. So we'll do that in a little bit. But for the first thing, I'm going to kind of use this shape for our creature here. So I need to adjust the wings. So I need to adjust the sculpting a little bit because just the direction of the bones is kind of backwards on this one. And I figured that out this week while I was working on these. So we'll just kind of adjust these wing shapes a little bit, and then the connection up here, the shoulder, is a little bit too high, so we'll move that down real quick. But other than that, I think we'll adjust his face just a little. It's a little too thick to be kind of that deer shape, so we'll just slim his nose out a little bit. But otherwise, I think sculpting is basically done. So we will just get to doing that first. So I'm just going to go into sculpt mode. And we don't have to make the wings as short as these, but we need to make them kind of follow the same shape. So I'm just gonna leave them about this long. We'll kind of pull them in a little, but not too much. And then I'm just gonna basically flip this portion of it here. Something like that. And then we can place these bones to fit our mesh. We don't have to follow the meta rig. So this one can have longer wings than the other one did. And I'll show one of the completed ones here in just a second. It's in this file. So that's why my stream started just a little bit late. I was making sure I had all the right data points in here, basically. We'll just kind of straighten these out, because the way this will work is when we create our feathers, we will sort of follow the direction of these bones to decide how they attach to the mesh. So it's pretty important to make sure that this is done. And that looks pretty close. I'm gonna try to get this just pulled back a little. And these wing bones can be pretty straight. I think they don't have to be too curvy, and really I could probably thin them out if I wanted, but we don't really need to necessarily. Okay, so now I'm just going to take this entire wing and just move it straight down. Including the shoulder, where it connects was just a little bit too far off the body. Basically, the rig, the wing is pretty flat with the top of the body, so there's not so much of a bump there. And it would work fine if we left that, but we'll just correct it because I know it works on the other ones. Just kind of toggle back and forth between views here, and then we'll smooth this out a little bit. So once we get this shape done and the mesh is signed off on, then we will actually unwrap this and throw some textures on it. And I think we'll have a little bit of fun with the colors, and we'll have the fur on it generate from the colors that we put on the body. So the hairs will just copy whatever the mesh is colored at that spot. So that should be kind of cool, because I think we'll stick with a color scheme like this that just you know, it'll look a little more realistic than this, but we'll do something like that, maybe a darker brown. But okay, I think those wings will work just fine. They're nice and thin, so that'll actually be kind of nice to deal with. And then once we finish placing these bones, we can kind of line up everything the right way. So that should be fine. And then you can kind of see the shape of the head on the rig here. So obviously this one's a little bit thick, which is okay, but we'll just kind of trim it up a little bit. I think if we were going to make a more aggressive looking one, we could probably leave the more wolf-shaped head, but I think for this exact one, we'll just make it more of a deer. Okay, and again, it doesn't necessarily matter what shape it is. We'll move the bones. We don't have to follow the rig. It just makes it a little easier to place everything if it's already kind of the same shape. And then obviously I haven't showed how to create this rig yet in the streams. So I'll kind of briefly demonstrate it, but it was fairly tedious to actually put all of it together. So I didn't want to just be fumbling around with it on the stream. So I kind of just got it ready this week. Let's do that. Kind of bring his jaw back down. Flatten out his forehead a little bit. Maybe pull his eye back. That's starting to look more like a deer. Let's pull the sides in. Deer have very, very thin noses. Do something like that, maybe. Okay. Make sure the stream's running well. Seems to. Say hi in the chat if you're here, so I know who's visiting. And let me know if you have questions or opinions on it, because we can change whatever we want. So you guys have the power while you're watching the stream if you want to make it look different. Okay, now let's make his chin a little bit thinner. So what I found out on the other ones, I used kind of a wolf type mouth and teeth and tongue model. So I found that it's nice to leave this lip on the top a little bit wide, because we will have fangs come out of there, and then you don't have to worry about clipping. So we'll just kind of prepare for that, and this will make it look like the fangs are kind of pushing the skin out of the way there. So that should be kind of cool. Okay, we'll deal with the mouth once we start to place that mesh later. And we'll see if we get to that in this part or not. But I think the main goal of this stream will just be to get this thing looking kind of cool. We'll get the hair on and get some material. Kind of bring the sides in a little, something like that. And let's see what it looks like now. I think that'll be pretty close. It's got kind of a reindeer shaped head, but that's okay. That'll work just fine. Make sure the mesh isn't too distorted anywhere, because we can run this slide relax tool just to kind of pull the details to where they need to go so that our deforming is smoother later. We don't need all of this detail inside the mouth, so we'll pull it toward the lips to give more flexibility. Just try to make the mesh line up with the motion of the character a little bit better. And that mostly happened just because we moved this around. Yeah, and the other issue I've seen on this one is this little spot that the topology created here. So I'll kind of just smooth that out. It's a weird spot to have these kind of direction shifts, but I don't think it'll give us any problems. We just need to unpinch it there for material sakes. Okay. So I think our mesh is close. At this point, we could do the rig or we could do the texture, so it doesn't really matter, but we may as well start off with some texture. So in order to do that, hide this meta rig. We're going to have to unwrap this. So I'm going to go to the UV editing page here, and you can see when I select the mesh, there is no UV map yet. So we have to create one. And in order to do that, we have to set up some lines. So if I just unwrap this as is, let's just do angle based. It's just going to make this big plane, and every single point is just kind of equally split out. That's not going to work very well, because this process will take the whatever image we put onto this picture, and it will slap the texture onto the model based on how these points are laid out on here. So this won't work because our texture won't have any sort of direction to it at all. So what we have to do is come in here and tell Blender how to split this model up. So let's lock our camera to the 3D tool here. Okay, so now some of these are very easy. Basically what you should think of when you UV unwrap is what would make each piece turn into a nice flat 2D image. So if you have something like a tube, like the antlers, you would want to separate it from the body. So I'll cut a loop around the side, and then you want to cut it down basically the middle of it. So we'll just kind of cut a line all the way around. And the only problem with that is sometimes you'll get the texture to have a seam. So you have to kind of plan this. But for each one of these, I will select my edge loops here, and then I'll right click and go to mark seam. And then they show up red. And this is all in edit mode, by the way. So now when we unwrap this, and I'll just show you this one just so you can see what we're doing, because it can take a couple minutes to make all these seams. We'll try to do it as simple as we can, but it does have to be done properly. Because basically, if you don't do it right, your textures will stretch or compress in the wrong way or overlap. So instead of having the horn be two flat pieces that are separate, it'll be one piece where the mesh overlaps, and then any texture that you have will basically be repeated. So if we tried to paint on one side of it, it would just basically bleed through on the UV map to the other side. Blender obviously is not having as much fun unwrapping this one. And this model is fairly high topology for actually animating and using it the way we're going to use it. So some of these processes will take just a little bit of extra time for Blender. Come on now, Blender. So I don't think this will crash. It might, but what is confusing it is we cut those loops on the antlers because it didn't take anywhere near this long the first time. So the only change has been those loops, and we didn't set it up to be very easy to understand. So you'll see here that it causes the problems I was describing. And Blender will try to unwrap it so that the planes don't overlap each other. But obviously, the way we've done this, I don't think it can do anything except for overlap them. Come on now. It's still running. It's still trying. I can hear my CPU cooler making noise, so I think it's going to let it happen. There we go. Okay. So now look at what we have. We had all of the points just fitting this plane, basically. And this is what we have now. So basically what it's done is it's taken the entire antler and it's grouped it into this goofy kind of spiral shape. So if you go in here and you select different points on the mesh in edit mode, you can see where they are on the UV map. And so every time I select one of these horns, see where it's popping up? It's popping up in this little glob. So any texture we put on this at this point would just turn into one big stretched, basically you'd have a tiny portion of the color, just a few pixels worth of the picture would stretch to all of the antlers. So this won't look like we want it to at all, and there's just not much you can do about that. So that's why we have to kind of do this the right way. So I'm just going to kind of show what we need to do here. So if you get lucky, like this one, you get a nice edge loop. This is just holding Alt and then left click. This one's almost an ideal cut, so I'll use that one because it stops. Some of them you'll see they go all the way around the character multiple times. We don't necessarily want to do that. And then I'll hit Control-Shift-M, which is select mirror. And then I'll turn on this extend option. So you can see the other side selected too. We'll mark that seam. And then basically what I want to do is I want to run this cut all the way around if I can, because right now it's going to take this and cut it along this red line and try to lay it flat. So it may or may not work the way it is. Let's actually just cut up to maybe here. Yeah, that should work. And then we'll add that to our seam there. Okay. And then looking at the model, I think we should mark a few of these before we start to try to unwrap it again for demonstration. So I'm just going to add some of the ones that might cause confusion for it. So the nice thing now about having all these nice clean edge loops is I can just select it and it just catches everything in one go. We'll just start marking these. And the way we're going to texture, it won't necessarily matter to have these aligned a certain way. The other thing we could do is split off pieces of the mesh and just add them to a material. And when we go into Substance Painter, those will show up as separate objects to texture. But we'll probably just do it with masking. So then the other thing I've been doing on these that seems to help a lot is I like to kind of separate the lips and then the inside of the mouth, because it makes it really easy to work with them. And I can just separate one side of this basically. And anywhere you connect to an existing seam, you don't have to redo the like you don't have to do anything to make it work, so you can just have this connect here with no problems. Let's see, there we go. Those should be right, and then mirror, right click, mark seam. So now what this will do is it'll separate, well, here I'll show you. Let's go to seam. There you go. It'll separate this piece as one part to texture. This is a separate piece here. You can kind of get the idea of what we're doing. Otherwise, Blender wouldn't know how to spread those out. So let's do our center line. If our mesh is perfect, this will go all the way around the body without stopping anywhere. And some of these places where it pinches up, it's possible that it won't work. Like here, for whatever reason, this one line, it didn't like. So we'll just mark that one. And that'll take the entire thing, and every other loop we make, it'll split it in half so that we don't have a strange seam anywhere, because it won't know how to fix the model if we don't cut it that way. So the other way you could do it is not cut the center line, and you could just cut vertical loops like this everywhere, and then you would just probably put a seam on the belly, and then it would take from the back, it would take that whole thing and split it out this way. So it'd be easier to mirror and do some other things, but it won't matter for what we're doing. There's not really necessarily a completely right way to do it. It just depends on your texturing strategy, basically. Okay, so the inside of the mouth should probably be a little bit separate. I was wondering if somebody would spot that. Yeah, I did. I got the 5070 Ti. If I have the time today, I will plug it in and get to testing it. So it's not installed. It's actually right here, sitting on my counter space there behind the computer. So I will be able to test it very soon. Yep, I have a lot more hope for that one than I did after testing the 5070 the other day. So I'm glad that one kind of it seems to perform better. The 5070 Ti does, so I'm excited to see what it'll do. Let's see. I'm wondering if we even really need this seam here. We may not. Let's maybe just leave it. Let's run one along here. Oh, you didn't see it. Oh, yeah, here. I know my low resolution stream plus the tiny box with my camera doesn't help with that. But there's the card. So we'll have that test tonight or tomorrow at the latest, hopefully. So obviously it's not plugged in anywhere. Can't really do anything with it at the exact moment, but all right. We can cut this. So the way to think about these loops is anywhere you're going to have stuff that overhangs a lot, like the antlers did, you have to think about how could you possibly make this flat. So cutting some extra loops will help Blender be able to make these strips. Like this piece right here would be pretty easy to flatten because all you have to do is bend down these edges. But if we didn't do that, we'd have a little bit of a hard time not stretching the textures. You could also do some testing for running AI with those cards. Yeah, I need to figure out what program to use, but I do have a couple I've done in the past, a couple AI uses, and you know, especially for generating textures and stuff, I think it has its uses for sure. So I can definitely do that. I'm planning on having streams to just sit and come up with these benchmarks for all kinds of stuff. I just haven't yet. Oops. Oh, we don't want to cut that way. Let's go here to here, all the way to here. But I do have Topaz Video AI, which is kind of interesting. It can interpolate videos so that you can add fake frames to make the frame rate higher. And I actually have tested that on really fast moving content. That was a bow and arrow being fired from a distance, and the interpolation actually did really well, even though the arrow was barely visible in the frame for very long. So I was pretty impressed with it when I tried it the first time on real footage. So that's the first one I'd try because it can take a little bit to add that many frames. But yep, and then Unreal Engine and a whole host of other software. I'm gonna try to start adding benchmarks as we go. The biggest problem is I don't know how to use all of the softwares yet. So to make scenes that are good for testing, I have to learn how to use it first. Okay, will this cut nicely? You know, maybe we'll just cut this in half. Let's do it. All right. So marking the seams is somewhat tedious, but I'd say it's still quite a bit better than topology, in my opinion. All right, now let's try to think. So if you try to unwrap this antler, the spikes on the antlers, it's not going to figure that out. So it's honestly probably better to cut loops on each one of these. Let's see, we have to do a... Oh, I might have to do them each at once. Control-Shift-M, mark seam. And I don't always do this, but I think this will actually be a much better plan. Yeah, see, that's an example of when your loops go crazy. It's kind of twisting and going all haywire, but sometimes those just happen to be happy accidents, as Bob Ross would say. And they end up working. That one looks a little too squirrely. So I'll just work through these here real quick. Okay. Oh, let's do these ones. Don't have a good clean edge loop until up there. That's fine. Okay. Yep, the eyes. Just think when you're doing this, think of what looks like a cave. What would you struggle with by hand, just theoretically, what would you struggle with being able to physically squish into a flat plane? Go to this one. There we go. So since the eye is kind of a cave shape, that's going to be really hard for Blender to not stretch everything. And inside of it, it's not going to matter as much, but it still will stretch our eyelids and whatnot if we don't do something to help it understand. Let's see. Ideally, we want to run one of these loops kind of through the middle of the eye. So we'll do it. Yeah, and the topology here doesn't follow it exactly. But again, if we have a seam on the inside of it, it's really not going to hurt too much because we won't see that. Yeah, I don't want them to be quite that messy. Let's just run this one. There it is. All right. Okay, and then I don't want the entire side of the head and the neck and all the way down to be one texture, so I'm also going to split it at various points that keep our textures to be a little bit more controlled of pieces. So let's maybe go right here behind his jawline there. Let's mark that. And this one I don't have to mirror because it already goes all the way around. Let's do this one. Nope. Okay. So what I found on the other models that I made this week is some of these, like I said, the happy accidents actually turn out to be really helpful so that you don't have to run this all the way down. And it looks like in this instance, this one's actually almost perfect. We don't really need this one that's all the way down the back, but we will just, I'll show you how to fix that. Yeah, having this go around the neck all the way up the wing, that's super helpful. So we'll mark it. And then anywhere we don't want that, it's kind of just like any other property. So what you can do, since we don't have anything else below it, this will be really easy. But you want to make it so you can see through everything. And then come in here and select everywhere you don't want that seam. And we'll just come back to here somewhere. And then I'm going to select mirror that. And then I'm going to right click and say clear seam. We'll have to go check the tail because we'll have this 1 or 2 lines here. Yep, we're on it. Let's do the same thing. We'll go back to our mesh here, and now you can see we've cut the wings. So there'll be nice flat planes that are separated from each other. All we have to do with this now is pick an edge loop to separate it horizontally. Like that. Okay, and so we have our neck sort of split off, but we need to run it to match the center line there. So let's maybe just take, honestly, this will lay flat enough. So let's come all the way up here. And let's just run this. Let's just run this line. Oh, maybe back over to here. Oops. And then one more. Something like that. And the way we'll do this is we'll kind of apply the materials in a way that we'll get most of it covered by filling it with a basic material. And then anywhere there's a seam that we don't like, we can paint on top of it if we want to kind of hide it. But it'll basically be just one major material with different colors for most of his body, and then the legs and hooves and stuff will be different. But this is definitely not the right way to do this for certain texturing methods. So just keep that in mind. But there's many ways to do it. Yeah, okay. It's going to be much easier to do this job with AI in the future. All you have to do is write a prompt for it, and it will create entire videos. Yeah, I think a lot of things will get easier, and for the most part, it'll be for the better. Um, I don't know. I mean, is there any point to making YouTube videos or really even in working on art projects if it can all be done in a snap with the prompt? So that's my only fear. I know there's a strong argument for um, tools. You know, if you're someone doing work in this field, having all the extra tools is not a bad thing. So if you know how to use the tools, then you still have something to show and to help people with. But I just wonder if AI art becomes close enough to basically human art to where you can have as much variation as hand done work, then I don't know how anybody could continue to make art the same way. But it'll be interesting. I think it's a really interesting deal, but I think, yeah, for the most part, all the tools will be nice. And I've used some texturing ones that are just ridiculously fast. And for doing generic world building materials, it saves just hours and hours, because you can just type in, this is rock material, and boom, it populates the 3D model with it. Let's see. Do I have a reference? Do I have a reference for the character itself? I can show you what I have in the scene. I have some images that I just got from Google Images, basically, and turn some of them on. They're just mostly deer for that part. I have a few of these that were just kind of styles I liked. Thought about doing the no front legs one, but just ended up not doing that. I think that's one of those things that looks really cool when you draw it, but I don't know how a 3D model would actually behave with a rig that way. I think it'd be hard to make it look natural to stand up and stuff. So I went with the 4 legs. So I have these images. I have some feet that I used. I think I used those last time too. And then actually, I have one of the other models that I worked on this week to, we'll say, reinforce my knowledge before doing this stream. And it's where I built the rig for this too. So that's in the scene. I'll show you that in just a second. We'll cut the rest of these loops really fast, and then I'll get into that. Let's just run this all the way around. Let's see, what else did we have? Hey, it's Philip Ford. Don't know if you remember me from high school, but I'll be stalking you from now on. Just kidding. This is awesome. Hey, Phil. How's it going, man? It's been a very long time. Glad you're here. Wasn't expecting that, man. But no, yeah. No, it's been good. Hope you've been doing good too. I want to say I don't think I even saw you since high school. But no, I'm excited. I'm excited you're here. I don't know, did our mutual friend must have told you to come check it out, huh? Oh man, these are getting messy. Sometimes when I'm clicking control, mark this one first. I'm clicking control. So I select a line, and then you hold control and click, and it will draw the nearest path to it. Sometimes I don't understand, like this here. Why would it do that? Why would it make extra corners? I guess maybe it doesn't really have the capability, but I mean, just make one corner where you can, you know. So sometimes this tool is nice, but you have to do too many extra steps. So let's do that. Those will get kind of flat. Really, we could run one around the bottom, but it's just going to make these big weird loops. And if you manually retopologize this wouldn't be a problem. So that's kind of a downfall of the quick way that I did it. Man, these are weird. These are just goofy. All right, let's just take this one. We'll go from there to there. And we'll just kind of go around. I've had some issues with texture stretching on the feet, and I think we can do some pretty cool stuff with it. For the texture use, AI is better. Yeah. Yeah. And especially super like background stuff, and I guess simple materials, if you will, that you need to apply to everything, like brick buildings and faraway mountains and stuff like that. I think it's definitely a really cool tool, because some of those materials that you have to just get filled in, they can take hours and hours to do. Let's see. So this will cut the leg and lay it flat. So this will be a piece, and then the hoof is split up into these little chunks, which they should work fine, but we'll fill them with a solid color more or less anyway, so they should be fine. Now let's just start doing a few on the legs. So let's go with low-hanging fruit, like that. Mark it. Here, we're going to add a little bit of a extra one, because on this spur, we'll have some really bad texture stretching if we don't separate this. So let's do that. And then we'll cut it down the middle. Let's actually cut this on the side, though. Oh, which one is it? Missed. There you go. We'll try to do it like that, maybe. And then it should hopefully cut it all the way, lay it into a flat plane. You know, I'm tempted to actually just run it all the way. Maybe let's just do that. Because these are kind of a cool little extra thing. May as well not make them look all stretched out and weird. Okay. Oh, that's unfortunate. Oops. Get rid of those. I didn't like those. I don't like when you create extra corners. There we go. Make sure my selection over here didn't duplicate it, and it did. Get rid of those real quick. What on earth? Okay. That should be good. Toes are pretty easy. Loop cut, loop cut. Ooh, that's maybe almost a good one. Let's try some of these other loops. Yeah, see, like that. You can't get much easier than that. It cuts all the way through the leg in the middle of it where you would kind of want that. This just makes life a lot easier, so I don't have to kind of manually chase these edges around. So let's just keep that one. And then we'll separate off the foot. see, how many of these can we do? Yeah, that'll work. And there aren't a ton left, guys. Bear with me for just a second. Because once you get this done, it's tedious. Just like read topology by manual methods. But once you get this done, everything's just really, really easy to do. Oops, let's mirror that first. Here we go. 1, 2. Does this one go? Yep. Try to cut them back as far as I can. Okay. Now, like here, since the bottom of the toe will probably almost never be exposed, let's do that one. Okay, it's 2 over. Let's go there. We'll just cut this maybe to there. So hopefully we can hide the seam underneath. Seam. We'll do this one. Let's try to keep it in the center-ish of the mesh. So let's maybe go to here. Pull that all the way back. One more, there we go. All right. So we got to finish up a couple of these loops on the feet, but I think it's going the right direction. Let's actually go from here back. We'll just see. We'll see how that unwraps. Some of these, I know having this circle on the end is going to cause a problem. Really? There we go. So let's just try to do something goofy like that. See how it does. And you can adjust UV maps after you unwrap, but it's kind of annoying if they're overlapping each other. It's a little bit harder to select them. Okay, so here, I think we probably want to have some sort of a cut like this. To take this whole side of the foot, and then maybe one here. Now some of these you'll see in Substance Painter once we get in there. This is going to cause problems on the feet. We won't be able to use a really nice smart material to just fill all of this in. So we'll have to kind of paint it to correct it, but that honestly kind of makes a better result anyway. So then this seam here needs to kind of end up somewhere. Let's just go all the way up to this toe maybe. And this probably seems somewhat like nonsense if you're not used to doing this. And these are not done the ideal way. You know, this would definitely not pass as professional, I'm sure. But it'll work for how we're going to do it, so just keep in mind. Don't do exactly what I do. Okay, we'll mark that one. Yeah, I honestly for AI tools, I'd really like to see stuff like UV unwrapping and some of these complex processes. It'd be really, really cool if they could kind of get that to be doable with AI. And I know that probably just requires somebody producing that. I don't know how I would do it. I wish I did. Because that could be really, really nice tool. Okay, let's see. Do we have any good loops on the belly? Yeah, that one works. That should be fine. Okay, so it'll take this entire piece and lay it flat, which it's a nice rounded object like that. It's not concave anywhere, so that'll be easy for it. This one's a problem because it wraps all the way around the body, so that won't work too well. Let's separate it somewhere in here because we won't see the texture goofiness very often. Mark it. So now you would have these areas separate. And this is one which may be just a little bit too big. Honestly, that might work fine. Maybe we'll try to run with it and see what happens. That shouldn't be a problem. All of this will be covered up by our fur later anyway, so we won't see the skin be too big of a deal. And then we'll have this guy, which will lay flat by this line, so that's looking decent. Toes are split up into halves. I think we're pretty good to go here. I don't know that we don't necessarily need to have this little extra strip. So maybe let's get rid of this one just to keep everything as clean as we can. Let's see if Blender can figure this one out. Oh, look at that. Nice. So I'll mirror those, and we'll clear the seam. No reason to have too many extra ones for no reason, for no use. This one, since this is a little bit concave, I wonder how it'll handle the inside of this, because this will be all one piece here, so it could stretch texture on the edges of it. So normally I'd draw a line right through the middle, but I think it might be fine. We'll see. Not a huge deal. We got the spurs separated. The wings are just big tubes, so realistically they're going to be about the easiest thing you could handle. Let's maybe just cut one at the very end here, like that, and mark the seam. There we go. So this whole plane will be one texture set, and we won't have that bunch up of vertices that we were showing. All right, last thing is we need to run some lines that connect all of these little cuts on the horns here. So let's try to maybe run this one all the way down here. Let's see. Well, we'll have to do that first. Mirror, mark the seam, and then let's get rid of these. So every time I do that, I'm just mirroring the selection, so it does it on the other side. So you can delete that way too. Let's see. And okay, so since there is no bottom, there's nowhere to hide this texture change. We'll just have to kind of run it around because this shape here will not unwrap properly if we don't cut it down the middle. So let's run it all the way up here, and then you just kind of go around. Let's come to a spot that looks like it's on the top edge again, so maybe over here. All right, well, there you go. Sweet. Mark that one. Yeah, I mean, something that's a little bit more aware of the goal, like an AI trained to figure out how to place these seams, would be incredible. I would think you would be able to feed it just dozens and dozens of models with good cuts done already, and be able to teach it how to do it, but I'm not entirely sure how you would train it on that kind of data either. Just because I don't really understand the way they train the models anyway. Oh, looks like I forgot to mirror some of these. So it's not a huge deal. I almost think once you have these cuts made, when you select, it almost seems like it kind of helps select the seam automatically. There we go. Fix that. Let's run that to here. Mirror, mark same. And I always mark these. I could just keep running this line all the way, but I like to mark them as I go so that I don't actually deselect just like one line of it or one edge, because then it'll just be a mess later when I unwrap it and I won't easily be able to find why. Okay, let's go offset 1 there. Mirror, mark it, go here to here. Where are we at? Well, it would have been nice if that tied in a little bit better. That's all right. Let's just do that one. And again, if it just depends on your material. So for this exact one, if we do we can do just whatever generic material we want, and we can fill the entire thing. So if we just want it to be like bone color with not too much variation, where these seams are won't really matter. You'll just have a little bit of added bumpiness and so on. But if you wanted them to be like tree bark, where it's got to have nice connection and it's got to flow, then that definitely would not work as well for this method unless you paint it by hand in at least in Substance Painter. Seam. Now how do we already have, somehow I already marked one edge on these. Weird. So we'll just incorporate it. See, like that little edge may or may not affect the UV map once we unwrap it. So that's why I do this as I go, just trying to catch those little errors before they're a huge annoying problem. All right, let's go to here maybe. Run this all the way up, connect. Almost done, guys. Almost done. Philip stalks me too. He's harmless. That's good to know. That's good. It's been a long time, Philip. I didn't know. I'm glad to hear you're harmless. We have an extra eyewitness account to prove it. All right. Let's just take this one here. Mirror, click. Yeah, texturing with AI. Yeah, it is free. So, and honestly, it's been a couple years since I've used one. I do want to come back and try one in Blender again, because I know that, I mean, the way it works basically is you could select all of the details of this antler and create a material and just assign these faces to it, and then you can literally type into the prompt inside of an add-on in Blender, deer antler, and it will fill that in. I mean, it's pretty crazy. It is very tempting. And I do like Substance, but it is expensive, and it's still fairly manual of a process. Let's split these. Let's do one more here, where his legs are, so we don't have a big weird polygon there around the outside. You know, really, let's get rid of this one. Clear that. I mean, it's better to have that on the inside, but I just think with this topology, I'd rather keep this from being a big, long, goofy piece. So let's do that. Okay, now if we've done it so that it's not as confusing for Blender, this should unwrap somewhat fast. Like before, it took a couple minutes. So here's our old one. It's just awful. This is dozens and dozens of points stacked on each other. So now hopefully here we can get a little better result. So I'm just using unwrap and angle based. I used to use Smart UV Project. I just haven't recently. And then I give this a little bit more margin. That'll take it just a second. What that means is where all of these UVs are placed on the map, it splits them out. It spreads them out a little. So if I come in with a brush and let's see, I need to find a tool to demonstrate that. But if I come in with a brush that's this size and where is it? If I come in with a brush that's bigger to texture this, what it's really doing, even though you're painting on the model, it's really kind of doing this. So if they're really close together, it's too easy to accidentally paint elsewhere. And you can see how weird some of these lay in. Like this is the back leg because here's where that spur got cut out. So you could be accidentally painting here and be spilling over onto the ears or the inside of the mouth or whatever's next to it. So it's kind of nice to space that out. And then what I want to do is look for these. So somewhere in here we have, it must be a horn or a toe that did not get a cut down the side properly. Well, and honestly, I wonder. Let's see. Yeah, see, that'll kind of stretch the texture, so maybe we run these all the way. And again, I think I've said this in every one of these parts of the series, but some of this stuff is not fun content, and it's just not fun to do a lot of it, really, because it's so tedious. But I don't want to gloss over everything too much. I want to show everything because you know, then you can kind of get an idea of what actually goes into it. And sometimes you have to decide if you want to just buy a model instead of making it, because I mean, just these streams have been 9 hours now, I think, total, to get from the blob to here. And if you like making characters, that's great. If you want to animate and don't care about making them, then you're almost better off just buying a model that you like. So I think tutorials sometimes give you a false sense of ease with some of this, because people that make tutorials are typically pretty good at using the program. So I just want everyone to know what they're getting into if they're going to watch. All right. Okay, so let's select everything. We'll unwrap one more time, angle based, and then I'll split up the islands just a little bit more. Then we can start texturing. All right. That looks pretty good. We don't have too many really out of hand spots. Some of the ends of the horns are going to be just a little bit deformed, but that's okay. You just don't want to see any of those where they're super, super dense. So let's go to like 0.03 for the margin. Okay, that'll work. What do we got there? Yeah, I think we're good to go. All right. So now make sure that we have a UV map, which we do. We just have to give this a material, which we already did. And so if we go back to layout mode, now it's time to start thinking about the texture. There's two ways you could do it. So if we want to have a hard line between specific materials, so if we want all of this foot to be one material, then we can separate these planes physically. So I think we kind of did that before. So if I select the rear feet material, you can see that it just already grabs all of this. And like in Substance Painter, this will show up as like an object. So you don't have to mask everything. You don't have to separate it out. So let's maybe clean up these lines, because I think this is a good place to have a somewhat hard of a line on it. So let's go into X-ray here, and let's just kind of start selecting all of these planes that aren't color. And there's ways to clean up the edges anyway. So it won't matter. Oops. It won't matter if we don't get a smooth transition, because we can paint over it. But we'll strategically have the fur stop at this part of the leg. All right, so now I'm just going to reassign some of these planes a little. So Substance Painter would see, I'll select by material here. So I'm clicking L while I'm hovering over this, and then you can change how to select in here. So it's kind of slick. But now you can see this entire part of this mesh. I'll be able to just slap on a texture, and I don't have to go through and exclude planes from the rest of the body color or anything like that. And then again, like all of this is the body color, and obviously this was fairly generic last time, and maybe we'll keep these colors. But the problem is, where you have these lines, you'll have a seam. So if you're going to try to use distinctly different materials for the brown and then the white, you would want the bumpiness and all that stuff to be really close so that you can't see there's a difference. But fortunately for our case, this is going to be hidden under fur anyway. So the color at the end of the day is really just going to end up being for the hair, to be able to decide what to look like. So let's look at our spots really fast. I think they're fine. I think they're cool. And they won't look as jagged as this, because the hairs will just take influence from it. So it won't necessarily matter. And we'll pick a different color when we texture it, but let's see, what else do we have? Okay, so we need to split out some groups. So now I'm going to select by seam, and let's just kind of do that. Let's see if we can. Nope. Yeah, so we can go up to there. So I'll go here, 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 and then realistically we would probably be fine. But let's try to just deselect this entire loop. Because we really don't want the hoof material to go up onto the leg there. Okay. And then we'll symmetrize our selection. And I'm going to add a new material. And we'll just call it front feet. And then we'll assign those. And you can see they change colors. And if I L select by material, now you can see where we're going to have the right color there. So let's just throw in kind of a dark color to represent it. And then you can, you know, you can kind of see what it'll look like. It's a helpful way to preview it. And in spots where we can have a fairly harsh line between the leg and the hoof itself, it's not gonna cause us any problems to have that harsh line. And like back here, we'll just have the hair will just hang over and cover up that transition there. All right, so we've got our spots, we've got our the body color. If we do a white, the body color of it will probably actually be like a very faint pink. And then where we want to show the skin, it'll just show up as like, you'll see the skin through it. We won't have to make colored hair or anything like that. We'll just make no hair or less hair there, if that makes sense. So I think that'll be fine. I'm trying to decide here if we should just paint the spots in substance instead of making them a separate material, because I'm trying to picture how that's going to work in the software. It really shouldn't cause too many problems. It's just for color. Let's just clean up a couple of these lines. I don't think you'll be able to see them, but let's do that, and let's assign those to the brown spots. Yeah, really, I think it'll work fine. And if we wanted to get rid of some symmetry here, we could. So like, if I wanted to just kind of make a few of these patches different, let's just do some. Let's make some of these small ones a little bigger too. And we'll just change them randomly. They'll be kind of symmetrical, kind of not. And it won't really matter too much, I think, based on the way we're going to texture this. Just give him kind of a spot there. Let's assign these to the brown spots. And let's kind of clear this out, because technically here you would see skin, you wouldn't see the color so much. So we'll just reassign those back to the body color. Same with this. It's just going to be kind of pink on his belly where there's less fuzz. And then let's just kind of make one over here. Yeah, and it can jump across. Yeah. Pretty cool. If anybody has an opinion on what to do with the spots and stuff, let me know. I think this will be pretty cool though. And then maybe we'll do some on the wings. Okay, so now everywhere that these colors are what they look like here, our material will be once we get into substance. It's super easy. Makes it really, really easy to deal with. Let's set these to the right materials here on the horns. These I will want to follow the seams just because that'll definitely make a better result for us. So I'll make sure this goes all the way around. We'll do that. Assign to horns. Come on, select the other direction, please. Really? There you go. Sometimes. These are going to be horns. I don't think we have any more on this other side. Yeah, so we can just kind of fill these in if it'll let me select them ever. There we go. Guess we can just do that. I don't know. Doing it the hard way. All right. We've got horns. Everything on here will be pink. You know, let's maybe just let's fill the entire wings with brown, because I don't think the pink color, the skin color, will make a lot of sense on the wings. We'll have to just cover it anyway. So let's do that, and then we'll set those all to the brown spots. And then maybe the same with the top of the tail here, which will be covered with feathers anyway. The feet have good lines. We'll model like toenails later, so that's done. The hooves are separate. This stuff should all be the same kind of colors. I think we're good to go. Music Monkey says, looking cool. Thank you. I think it's going to look completely different here in just a few minutes. So we've got our materials predefined. So what's interesting is Substance Painter will do this entire thing as a material, and the seams shouldn't affect much that we're doing because we're going to use a generic skin texture and make it really fine grained, so it's not going to be really, really bumpy. And let's go to a better preview here. Well, anyway, so if you're trying to use a material that's got to be continuous, this method will be somewhat of a problem because our UV islands, they call them, don't match up with where the texture's set up to be. But I'll show you here once we get to substance. It probably won't matter. So we're good to go. Everything's got preset materials. Let's just call this skin. And so realistically, this is actually going to look like kind of a really, really, really light skin color. With the piebald one, it'll probably be more of a pink, but we'll see. So the actual skin will look like that. But let's save our file. And then just for a little reference here, because somebody was asking, so just take a second to enable everything. All right, this is one of the other ones. I've made just like community posts about it. This is one of the ones I worked on this week. This is the goal. This is where we're heading. And I'll show how to make the feathers and how to place them and how to attach them to the rig and all of that. But yeah, this is kind of the what we're trying to end up with. But yeah, if you look at the texture here, like you can see the seams. You can see the seams if you look for them. So that's the problem with doing it with a fill material. But I mean, to me it looks fine, and you probably wouldn't have known that if I didn't tell you. Let's change our render engine here to cycles real quick. Just because everything that I've made in here is set up for that. So there you go. So we're gonna have eyes that will throw onto this new model. This mouth. Let me go to the X-ray. This model has a full mouth, tongue, all the teeth, and that's actually a model that I bought. The insides of this, the mouth, super high quality little mesh, and then it comes with all the teeth separate. So you can color the teeth and the gums and everything as individual pieces, and you can scale them and move them and stuff. It's great. So yeah, so next little bit here, we'll throw our textures on our new one. We'll throw some hair on because that's pretty easy, and then we'll place the bones for the rig, and we'll just see how far you guys want to go. I know it's already been almost an hour and a half, so just have to decide how long to go with this one. All right, let's see. Do you have any poses on this? Yeah, there you go. Just kind of a somewhat scary looking animal, really. But I think they're kind of cool. I think it's coming out how it's supposed to. All right. So let's throw this thing into Adobe. So now the UV maps will come along with it. The materials will just be, they'll just be blank in there. So we won't have our preview materials. So if you do things this way, you want to label the names of the materials so that they kind of help understand what you're doing. But we'll export this and we'll use an FBX. And we'll just call this we'll call it Peryton to substance. So I know that it's our export. Selected objects, mesh, animation, and all these other checkboxes won't do a whole lot for us, so shouldn't be a big deal. All right. Now let's, why is stream health fine? Looks like it. Okay. Sometimes I wonder if OBS is trying to drive me crazy or not. All right, so let's open up our painter. And then I can close Blender just so we don't have RAM or VRAM problems doing this. I'm going to come in here and just go to new. And I have this Blender starter assets template. Somebody asked me once where I got it. Don't know. I don't remember. I think it's something you can download in the Adobe launcher. Basically, I think it's kind of like an add-on, but I really don't remember. We're gonna use 2K. We shouldn't really need like a crazy large detail texture for this. Really the only, actually, you know what? We might. And I think, I'll show you why here in just a second. I think the back feet, we want as much resolution as we can because those scales can look really, really cool. Everything else on here should be good, so we'll import it. And like everything else, it takes a long time because this model is very, very heavy. Okay, so now, again, little text because I don't have the UI scaled in this. Honestly, let's see. Maybe I can do that in here. I do not see that option, so sorry for that. Everything's just going to be a little bit small on the screen here, but if I click through these, so it's called texture set list. If I click through these, it shows you the different pieces. So like you can see it cut our spots out. So if I just slap a material on there, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to mask anything. I don't have to exclude parts. It's just done. So let's just start. We'll go through these as quick as we can here because I think this will look just fine. Let's just go find a nice, fairly realistic, sort of soft skin. You could also use like a leather or a hide if you wanted to, but I don't think we'll really see it, so it probably doesn't matter. Thought about doing snake skin, but this isn't unwrapped for that. I guess we'll just use this human skin. So you can kind of see when I drag it on here, it'll just fill it in. And yes, it looks weird for the moment, but just hold on. So here's what I mean. If I scale this all the way up, and then we're gonna take the we're going to take a lot of the bump out of it because at the end of the day, we just won't see it. And I'm also going to crank the roughness a lot because where there's areas where the hair looks thin, you'll see shiny skin through the hair. We definitely don't want that. I'm also going to take off the height attribute and turn on the normal. So you can kind of see there's a little bit of bumpiness there. Change my lighting preset here. There's a little bumpiness there. We can maybe put that pore size up a little, but I don't want to actually have a height map on this model. I find them a little annoying to work with in Blender if I don't need them. So now what's cool is if I want to do the brown spots next, all I have to do is basically duplicate those settings. And you can copy and paste the material, but basically we just cranked that, turned off height, turned on normal, turned up the roughness a lot, and see, you can't even see where the spots are. Now all we got to do is change the color. And so keep in mind this will be what the hairs decide to reference for their color. So the color of the skin on here isn't going to matter as much. And anywhere that we see pink on here is probably going to be, it's just going to be white hair. And the reason that we'll use this kind of pink color for the skin is that there's not actually just completely blank white skin material. That would look strange if you could see it. So good example will be like the nose. This is kind of what it would look like. Just being exposed, but up here you won't see this. So Comment Design says, hi, best channel ever. Thank you. Welcome to the stream. You have a request. Yes, what is your request? Is it for this character? because we can still change a lot about this one if we want to. Let's do the hooves next, because they'll be super easy. For hooves, I always like to use like rock. So I'll put in stone. Please test Zaluda. Well, is Zaluda ready for the 9070 XT? Did they update it? Or did you figure out how to get it to work? Because I can test it for other old GPUs too. For those who don't know, AMD Zaluda is a software that tricks an AMD GPU into using NVIDIA's CUDA API, basically, for rendering. It is easy. Yeah, I have used Zaluda before, but I didn't know if they had it ready to go, because yeah, I have tested the older cards, the 580 with Zaluda, but I couldn't get the 9070 XT to do it. It didn't appear like the GPU was able to find it yet. And I don't know if that's just it wasn't ready, or if I didn't know how to install it, or what. But I think the software is just not set up yet. I think it needs an update to use the new ones. But yeah, any of the GPUs before the 9000 series, I believe, do work just fine with Zaluda, so I can definitely do it. Stone roughness. We'll make these a little shiny. So you can see here, these are kind of cheesy hooves a little bit, but from far away they look kind of cool. They have some surface texture to them. We might change a little bit here just to get them to be a little less ridiculous. Fake lighting. True or false? Huh, weird. Okay. Saturation. Normal intensity. Honestly, maybe we'll turn that down just a little. Yeah, that looks kind of cool. Just gives it a little bit of that shininess, and then a little bit of surface variation, so that we're not just saying like a shiny, smooth stone. You're the best channel ever. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm trying to give you guys some useful stuff here, so I appreciate that. Does RAM speed affect heavy render scenes? Maybe MB. What do you mean by MB? Motherboard? I think RAM speed doesn't probably do a ton, because, and somebody will yell at me for this probably, but I think all RAM is stupidly fast now. So I don't think you're going to feel anything slowing down for the RAM speed. Rendering especially. Motherboard, yeah. Yeah, that's what I suspected. Yeah, no, I think the RAM now is fast enough that you're not going to notice a huge difference. I mean, you will going from DDR3 to DDR5. But it's more about it depends on the process, because some processes use RAM in a different way where it cycles constantly. That's where you'd want the speed. I don't think rendering would probably rely as much on the speed as like gaming would, because gaming loads new data constantly. So I think and even there, it's not a huge difference. But you want to match it up. You want to match it up to the processor's ideal speed. If you're using AMD, especially, there will be kind of a specific speed that it pairs with easily. That's the easiest option. 1, 2, 3, 5. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely prioritize RAM size and getting a decent motherboard way before I would worry about the speed of the RAM. So like on this PC, I have 196 gigabytes at 6400 megahertz. And it just basically lets me not crash Blender a lot more often. Are we GPU bound for rendering? Have heard about Disney using CPUs. Yeah, the reason Disney uses CPUs is because it's relatively easy and cheap to get a lot of cores with a ton of RAM. So their scenes, I know in the past, like years and years ago, the interviews about Toy Story, and I think it was the first one. But the interviews, basically they say, you know, we can't use GPUs because they're not big enough buffers yet. And nowadays they probably could be, but back in like 2001, they were using 100 gigabyte scenes. So I mean, there was nothing even close VRAM wise, and there is now, but they're very, very expensive servers. And I don't even know, like Nvidia's big fancy AI computer servers, those kind of things. I don't know if they actually are fast at rendering. I think they're probably less efficient because they don't have the same kind of cores. But you know, they have less CUDA cores and more tensor cores, basically. So GPUs are a lot faster, but if they don't fit in your scene, then you're just kind of out of luck. This is kind of a cool material. I think for our rear feet, we'll use this. I have yellow on the other ones. This one, I guess we'll just do something different just for fun. Because I already have a couple other characters that are different than this, so we may as well make different versions. Okay, base color, dirt color. Oh, interesting. We should probably turn the saturation back down if we're going to mess with the color here. All right. What color should we put on the feet? This will kind of change the lighter silver parts on here, I think. Wondering if we shouldn't do what's going to look kind of cool with the white and brown. Maybe kind of a flat green. Contrast. I think we kind of actually want our roughness to be a little bit lower for this. Height range. Oh, there's different pattern types. Cool. Huh. Yeah, so like here, we just drug this smart material on and filled it. So I don't have any control over how it adjusts these seams. I don't think this looks too bad. And from far away, I mean, from where you're actually going to see it, back here, you can't tell, you know, you can't really see that. So it should be fine. Let's try to get maybe just a little bit more normal. Oh, there we go. Here's some more settings. And what's nice about Substance that is not necessarily unique to Substance, but I can just come back into this file later. As long as my mesh and UV maps are the same, I can make a new version of this, change the colors, which you still can in Blender too, but will you please, for the sake of Blender God, include some tests with the powerful Xeon in your list? Your list is gold. Yes, yeah, I can. That server is kind of a funny thing. It's got a lot of cores. It's got a lot of threads, but they don't run very fast. And I have yet to find a workload that fully utilizes 192 threads of CPU. So I think you run out of processor speed before you need that many cores when you're doing simulations, if that makes sense. So when I tested it, we were limited by how many threads the simulation can actually run. So that's the limiting factor. Basically, unless your simulation is massive, you can't use all the RAM and you can't use all the cores. And if it is that big, your cores would have to be very, very, very fast. So maybe modern 256 core like Epic servers, maybe those would simulate fluids and so on really, really fast. But the simulators I commonly use, they can't use all of the threads. So basically you have a weird deal where theoretically it would help, but you really can't tell because of the you just can't run it. It just doesn't. It's in an exact wrong spot basically to function how I thought it would. Now that's the Xeon server. That one is it's an older server, so it's it's not going to run as fast anyway. The current machine that I'm using here is a Threadripper, 24 core Threadripper, and this one gets a lot closer to what you would need for heavy duty simulations because it's got 24 cores, but they run at 5 gigahertz on all cores. So you kind of need both enough cores and fast cores. So those old Xeons, yeah, you can get tons of cores, tons of RAM, but a lot of workloads just can't make use of it. Let's try to find something. Let's go to maybe bone. That looks kind of cool. Organic flesh. We could put carbon fiber horns on him. Doesn't make any sense, but it's kind of cool. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, let's try this one. But as far as just testing that old server to show how it works and what it could possibly be used for, absolutely we can do that. All right, does this one have presets? So there's a lot of pre-built kind of stuff set up in here that I haven't used, so I always just have to come play around with these materials. Let's see, this looks like it's kind of the dirt color, so that we'll want to make kind of a darker, maybe not quite a black. Something kind of like that. Bone roughness can come down. Yeah, see, like here's a good example of this might be a spot where you would want to use something that the tiling isn't going to look strange because of these seams, because you can see them again from far away. Can you see them? I don't know. Maybe not. You can also try to offset it, but and rotate it, but there's so many points, or there's so many different spots where there's a seam that's a problem. You're basically hoping to get lucky enough that they just line up. So the other way to use this material and skip over the seams is to paint this on. Nice creature. Where do you want to make feathers? I will show you. I am going to make meshes that have an image of a feather. So we'll model the feather. It'll basically just be like a stick. And then we'll render a picture of this. It's a stick with hair particles on it, or hair curves, they're called now. I can't get out of that old habit. And when you render that, you can render it with a transparent background, and then you can slap that onto a really low poly plane, and it's super lightweight, it's super easy to use, and you can use it as a particle system, like with tiny feathers on the wings and stuff. So it's really, really nice. I did it for the other one, and I'll show you what they look like. I have a free feather pack in ArtStation if you want. Oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, some of the feathers too, my method is really good for what it is, but you know, sometimes you really want a high detail one too. But yeah, I will I'll check it out if you want to send me a link somehow. Why has this got bone color here? So that's the basic color. This is a very interesting material. I don't think I like it as much. Yeah, what they're feathers plus alphas. Okay. What how did you go about making them? I'm just curious what the best way is. All right, I don't think I like this material as much. We'll just go back. We'll do this bone one. We'll scale this up. No height. Add normal. I think this will look fine. No one will be able to tell. And we can always adjust all of this stuff in Blender too. It's not like it can't be changed afterward, because these just become editable shaders anyway. Just make this... Oh, it is honestly kind of just a black color. Let's do that. Let's try to scale this down as much as we can. It just makes those seams super visible if we do that. So, I mean, this is almost correct. Usually the darker color would be down at the bottom, so we would have to manually paint that, which is fine. We just probably won't right now for this exact video. And I know most people don't use Substance or you know, a lot of these other soft, like ZBrush. A lot of people don't use those. So this is not as relevant. The feathers plus alphas, you'll find out. Blender curves. And brown was amazing. The brown, for what? For the other material? Let's see. Change up my lighting here and see what this looks like. So if we get into some more realistic lighting settings, you can kind of tell what this will be like. I think the skin is maybe even too colorful. It should just look like really soft light skin color. That'll probably do it. And then let's maybe shrink up some of the bumpiness. We have this tiled all the way up. Yep. So if you want the brown for the horns. Yeah, is this what you meant or the other one? Because if people have opinions, I'm going to do it. Because I also have, I'll show you this one I've used before. It's really cool. Oops, missed. Normal. Get up few of these things set up, but this one I have always used, and it's kind of an easy go-to. Just an ivory. I need to go try to find some more. Just crank up all the details. We have a 4K map to use here for this one, so we may as well try to get some details on it. Okay, ivory. We want it fairly raw. Yeah, this one I think relies a lot more on the height map, unfortunately. So maybe let's just try it. Let's try to use it. Height maps are fine. They're just a little tricky. Okay. All right. Now in here somewhere, we should be able to change the color of this if I remember right. Huh. Maybe this one does not allow you to. You can shift the hue. That's not necessarily what we want. I guess we can try that. We could do that. So that's, I mean, that's another option for material. But... brown horns. What else could we do? We should do something. We should do something fun. Yeah, Substance added this little store search option in here, and you can download materials directly to your program instead of going out and doing it in the Adobe launcher. Okay, so there we go. Bone, there's piles of bones. Chicken bones, gross. Broken bone, let's see what that is. I don't know about all that. Yeah, other ones that might be cool are certain types of tree bark can probably work. Now let's see. I mean, they could be metallic, they could be really whatever we want. Let's see if there's one for teeth. Nope. Ivory, it's probably going to pull up just the one. Maybe. Let's check this one out. That one's not too bad. Okay. Let's see what other. Honestly, stone might work. there are a lot of options. I just, with the way it's mapped, it's kind of annoying. Yeah, this I think this is the brown that you were saying was cool, not the other one. So I'll start playing with that. If it's not this one, let me know. So I don't want to ask for opinions and then not do the thing. Make those just a little bit of a darker color. Let's make this just... Yeah, maybe you meant like this, like a really dark brown. Maybe I'll just do that. That actually does look pretty cool. And then we'll make these highlights just a darker color, maybe. Yeah, something like that. That looks pretty good. A little bit of interesting roughness variation. All right, so I think we're good. We got our bird feet. We'll cover up any sort of seam there. The hair will cover up all of our less exciting looking skin. Dark does look nice and would make him stand out among others. Yeah. No, and I think with the white color and then these spots of darker colors, I think what'll happen is it'll match the piebald look of it a lot better. What do you guys think of the green for the feet? Because really they can be anything. I just thought that was kind of cool. Let's make these really dark, these spots, because they're actually going to be like a almost black, not a brown. Cool. Okay. Yeah, other than any little changes, I think we can be good with this one. So I'll wait for comments for a second, but we can play around with all these other parameters in here too. Some of them are pretty cool. Not entirely sure this blood setting is supposed to be like blood on cracked open bones or what, but blood spread. Yeah, it kind of adds that roughness variation, so we'll keep it. Oh, okay. Something like that. Dirt variation. Yeah, I mean, you can... There's one reason I like Substance, because you can change a lot of parameters really fast. And you could do any of this in Blender. It just takes a lot of setup. And you know, I can't remember which channel it was, but some tutorials I watched, they called people who just slap smart materials on smart material abusers, and those are the ones like this that you just have parameters, you don't have to paint it on or anything. And I am definitely a smart material abuser as much as I can be. Yeah, so there's a soft lighting. I just want to make sure that nothing's too shiny, although we can fix it in Blender, but I think this is cool. I think we're good to go. Let's save this as a file. We'll go back to... Oh, where are we at here? Oh, it doesn't like that. Okay. We'll just do Peryton substance file. Yeah, that'll just be in the main directory. And then all I've got to do is export the textures. We'll put this up to 16 bits. Let's go back to our folder. And then I'll create a materials folder. And then I'll create, because we'll put feathers in here later too. We'll put body. Select that folder. And then output template. We have this Blender preset. Again, don't know where I got it. I wish I could remember. Size. I'll just let that be the same so it doesn't change anything. And then we'll hit export. Pretty straightforward. So we'll close that. We can close that. Yes, save the changes. And then we can reopen our file. There you go. All right. So now we go into shading. And obviously it has our old materials. So the way this works, if we would have had just one material and painted it, we would just have to plug in one material, but that is not the case here. So I believe what Substance does is it applies each of those material sets the same way that it got them. Oops, not. I need to select this and hit Control-Shift-T. So I select the shader, Control-Shift-T, and now I have to find the material set that goes with the skin, and it should be the same name because we didn't change those. So I'm going to grab all of these except for displacement because we did not use the displacement parameter, so I'll leave it out of bringing this in. And then I just click set up the principled shader, and now you can see that we have the skin on there. It's hard to see the normals. We can crank it up just to see that it's there, but it won't really matter too much because the skin won't really be like crazy bumpy, just a little bit. Woo! Getting a little wild over there. Yeah, and sometimes I find that you have to turn down the normal strength when you bring these back to Blender. Not entirely sure why, but... So we got that. So now we have our relatively okay skin versus our kind of goofy brown skin. So I'll just click through these slots and we'll do the exact same thing. So this is brown spots. Get rid of displacement again, don't need it. Okay, so there's that one, a lot darker. Here again, I'll turn down the normal strength just a little bit because we won't see them anyway. Slot 3, we'll do the horns. Just got to find the shader here. Click, Control-Shift-T, horns, no displacement. Okay, there's those. Those are pretty cool. They're a little bit shiny, but we can play with that. And this one, I don't think it had a displacement required, but that looks fine. We'll quit messing with it for now. Slot 4, this is one I really want to see how it turns out. Rear feet. Oh, those came out really dark. That's pretty cool. Honestly, it's almost like a pearlescent car paint or something. You can only see it if you're directly on from the light. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I think that's awesome. It'll look even better with the plane turned on and some real lighting, but And finally the hooves. So, I mean, they were fine as just black. We could have put a little bit of shininess on them, but displacement I don't think was needed. But now they have a little bit of a surface wear, just kind of adds some interest to it. Go back to our layout. All right, so now this is what we've got. Hi, what do you use your render farm for? Do you use it for yourself or do you run a service? Currently, right now, I use it for myself. But that's really only because I don't sell the farm yet. I'm gonna start to though. So I mean it's idle most of the day, most days, honestly, because my projects are usually just a few seconds long, and you may or may not have seen the short that I posted the other day with the kind of coyote character. It's 12 seconds long and it took 35 minutes to render. So even my usual projects don't really use it for very long at a time. But yeah, I definitely want to start renting it out. My power rate is cheap. I don't have the fancy automated software that big farms have, but I would be able to run it very cheaply for people. You know, if it's not super urgent of a render, I can probably do it within a day. If you need it like instantly, which is kind of a problem as a small farm, that's harder to do. But I'll probably just set up remote software so I could control my farm from wherever I'm at off of a tablet. But yeah, I definitely am interested in selling render farm time. I have almost 20 GPUs, and I think doing the math, it just, if they run all day long, the power use is not really that crazy. So I could definitely sell it for pretty cheap. But yeah, I mean, if that's something that you might need, let me know. Like I said, it's idle most of the time. So okay, all right. So we have got our materials in. They look fine. I think next we should just do the hair. Tempted to try something. I don't know if it'll work, so let's just do it. Let's go into edit mode here. And I'm going to select the brown spots. So I'm trying to think how to do the colors of the hair, because if we have the hair just follow the color of the skin, then all of his hair will be pink or slightly pink, and we don't really want that. We want it to be white. So I'm kind of thinking about just assigning these into the vertex groups. But the only problem with that would be how the fur groups come together. So I might have to overpaint extra weight paints, if that makes sense. Because you'll have white hair that stops here, and then you'll have brown hair that starts here. So there will be kind of a weird seam. But maybe this will be the easiest way to separate where the colors go to begin with. So let's try it. Let's take let's add a group here for brown fur. Okay, and now with all these planes selected, I can assign. And this is the same thing as weight painting, basically, except for I don't have to do it by manually doing it and comparing it to the you know, the render of it or whatever to try to paint it correctly. I can just select the pertinent materials. Let's see, this is going to add all this to pink. Yeah, so that'll be fine. And then I'll call this the white fur group. And we'll assign those. And then some places where we want the skin exposed, like obviously his eyeballs and his nose, and A little bit like under his tail and his legs and stuff. We'll make the hair a little bit thin on his belly because it'll kind of be like that reference, which I think I turned that off. Let's see if it's on here still. Nope. That drawing I think is kind of a good example. Yeah, this one. You can see this one on the piebald. You can kind of see like pink where the hair is a little lighter and the nose. So we'll try to do something kind of like that just by having the hair vary, but we'll be able to do that later. So these are assigned to the white fur. Feet have their own materials. The brown is done. I think that's it for hair. And then after we set up the hair particle system or the hair curve system, we will just kind of tune where those start and stop. Let's check it out. Okay, so let's close up some stuff here that's going to be in our way. We don't need the rig right now. All right. So let's start to add the hair. Yeah. Let's take a shot at it here. Let's add curve, fur. It's gonna explode at first. And then I'm gonna come in here and set the density to, we'll have to do both. So we'll start with the main body fur. And then I'll pull this out and we'll get the asset browser set up so I can run my normal hair operations here. So the last time I made a video about hair was a long time ago, and I didn't know how to do some of these things that I basically do constantly now. So let's just kind of go through the process real quick. So I know just from experience, this needs to have that kind of thickness. I'm going to, so this density mask, it just sets the, you know what? You guys probably can't read these parameters very well, can you? Let me turn up the scale more. See if that maybe helps. I know it's low resolution too, so. We'll modify density in a second. The trim hair curves, let's make them like 0.15 meters. That's definitely too long. Let's go to 0.02 maybe. So it depends on what you want. If you want it to be really shaggy. We need to turn noise and frizz off for now, because it's changing our trim. 0.05, let's try. Still too long. 0.01. Okay. Those are pretty short. The problem is, if you make too short of hair, it doesn't cover very well. So you have to add billions of hairs. Noise and frizz, honestly, for this model, I probably won't use those because the fur will just kind of fall pretty flat. So I'll just delete those so they're not blocking up our space for no reason. Yeah, let's try that for the length. And it's hard to tell for sure, but you can kind of see where the gaps are. Like this spot here, where our brown fur will go. So if we crank up the density, oh, it's a good number. Let's do 200,000. And it's some scaled amount. It's not an actual number. But this will let us kind of see what it looks like. Let's save our model quick. Let's zoom in here. So we definitely don't have enough density. So there's two ways to deal with hair. You can, to make it look real, to make it fill in all the way, you can make the hairs thicker so that they just take up more space. You can make them longer so that they cover the gaps that ones below them are leaving behind. Or you can just put a whole bunch of them on there, and every single one of those has its own set of issues. So what we'll do is we'll get these to where we think the density of the hair looks good, because we'll reuse the similar parameters to the other for the brown hair. And then to actually work with these, we'll change this viewport amount so that it runs faster, because this, you can already see it's slowing the file down a little bit. Let's see, let's make sure our settings are good here. Viewport denoise. I like to crank this up just a bit, because if we're sitting here doing something else, it'll give it time to finish rendering it. So like here, you can already get a good idea of what the hair will really look like. And we have to lay it down, because right now it's going to add a lot of thickness to him. He's going to look really fuzzy. So we'll do that in a second too. But yeah, I'm curious to see how those edges will work with the other hair set. Yeah, so I think as far as our parameters go, we're good. The next step is to, I'm just gonna tweak this that much more. It's just hard to decide that it's good enough. So I'm gonna go to the viewport amount here, and we're gonna put it down to 1%. So this is pretty workable. You could go less, but I really don't want to deal with not seeing them. I need to kind of see what the hairs are doing. So let's go into actually we need to finish our weight painting. So let's go back to weight paint. So now see, these are the groups. The red is the white fur group that we created by selecting those materials. So it's kind of a easy way to weight paint if you don't want to actually do it when you don't need to. The other annoying thing, and actually, you know what? Let's do this. Let's do this on edit mode as well. So like inside the mouth, obviously doesn't need to be fuzzy. And this is part of the reason why I like to separate these UV groups, because they just go away. So we have the white fur group selected. So I'm going to remove these from the weight paint. So if we go back into weight paint mode, now you can see that it's perfectly removed the hair from inside there. Sometimes it's easy to paint, sometimes it's easy to do it with edit mode. Same with these. We can do that with weight paint, because really a lot of this area will still have hair on it. So that one's fine. Make sure we don't have any other areas we need to remove the hair. I think that's the biggest one. We'll do the nose with weight painting. So yeah, when you've got areas that are like inside the mesh like that are really hard to get to weight paint, you can do it in edit mode, and that's maybe just a lot easier. So now this is still the white hair group. I'm gonna set this down. We want him to have hair down on the chin, not on the lips, and the actual nose skin will be exposed. So let's just kind of make a nice line. And sometimes you have to come back in and trim this up, because you can't see all the hairs. And if your weight paints aren't completely perfect, you'll have a little bit of a highlight out in the middle that you can't really see, and you'll get random hairs popping out. So it's always a little bit of a trial and error. Let's see. I think we can give him this little bit of a mustache shape up here by his nose. Otherwise, we'll keep it off of the skin itself. And then anytime you want to modify where these groups are, or add hair to somewhere else, you just come in and weight paint it, and all the parameters will stick around. Here, I think maybe let's just follow the shape of that a little bit more for now. And we'll see. We'll see what it looks like once we get the rest of this little bit done here. So now we need to go up to sculpt mode with the hairs selected, and it defaults to putting all these guides where they were originally, because we didn't have a weight group set to control where the hairs are. So I'm going to remove all of these, and you'll notice our hair disappears. Don't worry, it doesn't matter. The length of the hair guides is 2.15. I think that's normally good. Shape. So now I'm going to just add hair guides. What hair guides are is basically kind of a way to control the shape of the hair. So whatever the shape of this hair is, all of the hairs near it will imitate that hair, and they'll also interpolate from the other hairs around it. So it's really nice to kind of smoothly transition the hair to flow in different ways. But you have to kind of manually place these, and you could just kind of slap them around everywhere and just deal with it. But if you want to control it better, you kind of have to do it by hand. Oh yeah, the eyes. We got to take the eyeball hairs off. I forgot about that. Yeah, so a lot of these big flat areas, you can put guides just out in the open. Anywhere you have defined creases, like on his neck here, you kind of want to bunch up extra ones on either side of the crease if you want to keep that shape. I'll show you a spot where that really makes a difference on the legs. And then when you start these, I'll say less can be more, because if you shape a few of the generic ones, like a few of your first ones, you shape them right to start with. You get them where you want them. You don't have to work with as many. Well, then you can just come in here and add more, and it will interpolate between them. So you don't necessarily have to do this crazy grid to use these curve guides properly. And then like here, there's a seam that's pretty aggressive on the model. So in order to kind of keep the hair shaped that way, I want to make pairs of hair guides around each side of the seam, so that basically there's a hard line where this switches from following the leg to following the chest. And then down the middle will be pretty straightforward. We'll just add a bunch of those. We'll just add kind of randomly on big open spots. It's not going to make as much of a difference. So I'll pair them up here on the leg again, like this, just to make sure we have enough control. And when you use these, if there's ever a time when you don't feel like you are able to get it to shape the way you want, or if it's at the end of an object, like the end of an ear or something, you might just need to add more guides. So big flat areas like this, we'll just go crazy with it. Areas like around the shoulder here will get a little tricky. So I'll add extra ones just to make that a little easier to work with. And then let's just go down the back. There don't have to be tons and tons of these. Also for spots like around the tail, like this whole area right here is very complicated topology relatively. So you want to make sure you put enough guides to be able to shape the hair how you want. So like if you actually want this seam to stay correctly, you have to just have a lot of controllers. So we'll do this just kind of like all the other seams. We'll do this region that way. Okay, so here doing the same thing, covering the seam either side as thoroughly as I think I need to for now. And you can always add more later. You can always remove them. None of it's permanent. They don't get like baked into it or something. And then here, just from experience, I know I always need a lot on the side. I need a lot more than I expect to, but I think we're gonna try to do it by interpolating later instead of having to move all of these right now. You just want to think about the curvature of it. So like the back of his thigh or butt cheek here basically is very sharp. It's a very pointy spot. So if you put a curve guide over here and then one way over here and nothing else, these ones in the middle are just going to lay flat because they're only going to target the ones that are close to them. So you kind of have to look in this area where it's nice and flat. 2 guides far apart is going to be plenty. So there's a little bit of strategy to this, and really adding fewer and then interpolating more later is probably easiest. So, and I just, out of habit, I'm going back to putting them where I know that I'll need them, and I really should just be doing the interpolation method anyway. But so then legs, like here on the apex of the front of the leg is a good place to put them. And then you want to add them on the side of the leg. That can be a little bit more random on the back. And again, since the legs are sharp shapes, you have to kind of go at the quarter angles too. You can't just go on the flat sides. Let's just go down all the way down like this, and then we'll do our quarter here on the front. This looks like a ton, but you can deform these with a big spherical brush, so it's not going to be as bad as it looks to actually work with these. And then one other tip is where things end, like here on the tail, because the curve guides, the curves can use multiple guides, so you can tell it how many guides to look at. If you do one, it'll find the closest curve guide and match that shape, and you can put it up to as many as you want. So in areas where you want a well-defined hard line, you want to add extra ones, because all of that influence will, you'll be able to control it more specifically, basically. So I think we've got good enough coverage to start sculpting it, and then we can interpolate more if we want. Add just a few down the front legs here. And then obviously we've got these empty patches where there are not hairs. The curve guides don't matter. You can put them anywhere on the mesh, and they'll control the hair curves that are near them, but it really won't cause any problems. So if you accidentally place them outside, or like here where there's this patch where the other color is, not going to matter. Delete this one here. Accidentally clicked twice, so we'll get rid of that one. We might just need a couple in here, just because I know we will. Kind of skipping some of the steps because I just know what the answer is going to be. But this is why I like 3D, because you can just iterate everything. Just try all the different versions you want to, see what it looks like. All right, so here, even though there's not hair, you may want to put guides, because the hair around it, you would want to kind of follow the same pattern. Okay, so that is a super boring process. I guess one last area that always matters: put a bunch of extra hairs around the eyes and the ears, because you'll want to be able to kind of control that more. And then let's go back to our weight paints really fast, because we have to take off the eye weights. Obviously, we forgot to do that. So we'll just paint this, and we'll build eyelash curves for these as a last step later. So we don't really need to leave any hair on the skin itself. Although I will say, you don't want to overdo removing the weight paint from here. You do want some of this hair to actually fall kind of onto the eyelid. And these eyelids aren't super specific. They're not super high poly. So we'll have to decide how to use them with the rig later, but I think just having the eyelash hairs on there as a separate piece would probably be fine. And we'll see once we turn back on the hair preview to full if there's any hair sticking out of his eyeballs or anything like that. Cool. Okay. So now, see, we don't have hair in the eye. I'm going to go back to sculpt mode, and before I forget, I'm going to select all. What this is selecting all of the hair curves that you see, all the controllers, actually, I believe. And then I'm going to go to curves and snap to deform surface. So when this eventually is animated or rigged, those hairs will stay attached to the surface. And now we can move these around. So I'm going to get my brush out. This is the comb brush. And you can change it from a sphere to projected, which is like it's flat, but it's based on the camera angle. The sphere is, this is actually a 3D spherical shape that's going to modify these. I like to turn the strength down. And then we just get to going. So having a little bit of simple topology here. One way to control how this looks is just by how you sculpt the hair. So if the hair sticks off of the body a lot, it's going to make it really puffy looking. You could get like a winter coat looking effect, or like a reindeer kind of effect. You know, anywhere down here, you just got to decide what do you want the hair to do. So I think we'll pinch these back, and maybe we'll grab this one and bring it forward. And he'll just kind of have like this little kind of goatee thing going on. Let's see. And then I think our face hairs will go basically up and backward. Might turn the strength up here, clicking too many times. So I'll pull them up. And it is annoying with this many hair guides because you end up having to work around all the other ones that are in the way. So you end up grabbing the wrong ones and it becomes kind of a mess. But let's just kind of lay these down, start to look at the shape. So there's also a modifier that you can put on these curves for shrink wrapping these to the surface. But the problem is when you deform it, it really causes a lot of issues. So I'd say for animated characters, that modifier is kind of hard to use. Oh, we got some sneaky hairs hanging out inside the model here. Come on now. There you go. They are harder to grab once you get them stuck in the mesh. There you go. Okay. And then keep in mind you can set your view direction. So you can come straight from the bottom and kind of find these shapes a little easier. Thing looks like a catfish right now. Maybe like a Chinese dragon or something. Kind of cool. Okay, so at the end of the face here, we'll have to kind of play with the direction of the hair. And this is what I mean. You can transition them nicely. So instead of just having them in blobs that go in different ways, this thing will actually allow us to kind of switch from one to the other smoothly. And keep in mind, the curves that that see each curve guide are going to look like the curve guides that they are like basically using. So if you have this, if these are curly or backwards, then the hairs will actually look like that. So it's a super visual way to kind of see what it's going to look like. Okay, so now this looks fairly intimidating, but it's actually kind of one of the easy parts. You can turn your brush strength down a little just so you're not shoving the hairs too far. But we want them to follow the mesh, especially if you look up like deer fur. It's very thin and it lays down flat. It's not too noisy, so it doesn't have a lot of curliness in each hair. These bottom ones probably won't matter on the tail too much. So the neck, we want basically the flow of the hair on this is going to be that it goes backwards on the spine. So it goes down the neck, straight back, and then you want to pull it to the side a little. So I'll show you that in just a second. So these ones on here, these ones are going to be important. You want to kind of pull them in sort of a nice gentle arc like this, and especially on like a horse, that makes a bigger difference because they have a bigger, more defined kind of rib cage and belly there. And for this guy, his belly's not quite as big, but you can kind of see already this really changes the shape. It changes the form of the character more than you would think. So in some way, you can get back some of the character's shaping that you want just by how you do the hair. So if you destroy it in Retopo, at least with general details, that's something you can fix. So now what I think happens here is all these hairs, they go toward the butt and they go out. And then the ones on the side kind of go from going backwards to transitioning to going straight down. And in that pattern, they get this nice curve. It really kind of forms to the body. Yeah, that's looking pretty slick. Yeah, I need to also look into hair card methods. I in general know how to do them. I've never got them to look as good as real hairs, but you also can't simulate these yet. Hopefully that'll come soon. Does anyone know when Blender might add simulation nodes that actually work for the hair curves? Because I know some people have kind of made custom ones too, but I think it's still a tricky process. So let's get this. Try to just pull this hair down. Come at an angle. And keep in mind, when you're using brushes in Blender, everything's relative. So everything's relative to your view. So if you're finding that your hairs are getting sculpted into the model too much, just adjust the angle that you're looking at. So like if I go really low like this and I pull these down, they'll go inside the mesh. But if I go at a different angle, I can pull them down more, without going through it. So it just kind of, if I'm going to work on something that's flat to the body, I tip the viewport up, because then going sideways to a part that's thicker doesn't push them into the model. They stay outside. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's kind of a little trick I've learned because I have to pull them back out of the mesh so many times. It's very annoying. Okay, and yeah, here, like this is a great example. You can see the the shape of the leg really is impacted by the shape of the hair. And you can make them follow the leg like they're stuck to it. You can make them hang down, whatever you want. If you want it to look more shaggy, like a reindeer or something with a winter coat on it, then just have them hang straight down. Don't wrap them to the form as much. I think around the back of the legs, here is probably one of the most important spots because it's one of the most aggressive forms on the model, so you definitely want to make sure that looks like you want it to. Yeah, see, in these inside ones, they're hanging straight down, but they'll look weird versus the other ones because they're all following the form. So you want to keep it consistent too. All right, then he's kind of got these ones in here are fuzzy. That might actually be okay, except for the ones around it. So I'll just kind of get them to hang a little more and then they'll be fine. I think that'll work. Okay. So these I'll pull back a little and then pull the ends down just to kind of define that belly. Then front legs are pretty close. Here on the neck, you got to turn those this way. The spot here where it goes from the neck to the shoulders is kind of an interesting one. You just kind of have to decide how you want it to flow. So here I'll just kind of redirect it around it, and then up on his back they'll just fly over. So here's a good example of a spot where I'll probably have to add more curve guides in here, and all I have to do, since all this stuff is interpolated, all I have to do is come click, and it'll make this one an average of the two next to it, basically. So, and if stuff still isn't following what you want, just keep adding more. If you got big flat spots that look weird, just come at them. So like this, where I'm talking about use less first, and then interpolate after you've got the right forms. To really make it a small granular adjustment, that's how you do it. So now if I have all these spots where there's big, like here, I can come back later, add it in. I think this is looking pretty good though. We're gonna need some more around here because there's really nothing telling the hair how to navigate around the shoulder. We'll just get a little bit more going on in there. We'll put one here, put one here. So anyway, there's a lot of bending around. That's where you want to have excess curves. So this will be kind of interesting here. Let's move this one so it goes up and over the shoulder. And let's kind of over exaggerate these following the bottom of it. And you can kind of see the split between them. So you just want to just decide how much of a transition it needs to be. So that will probably look cool. I'll pull this out more so it doesn't look like it's diving into the skin. Okay. We've got this windblown catfish look going on here. Let's turn this down. And the face ones, honestly, I always find they're hard to know. It's hard to know what looks right until you kind of see it with the hair's colored and stuff. So we'll try to put this on, but these probably need to go sideways and we need some other little adjustments, but it's harder to know until you see it with shading. So we'll revisit that here in just a minute. Pretty cool. Okay, and then our brown spots, we're not going to do as many adjustments on those, they should be pretty straightforward. So we'll be able to slap those on pretty easy here. Cool, 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 cool. Also, I think this weekend I'm going to try to research finally launching the Discord page, because there's a bunch of stuff I want to do that would just be easier on a chat type of setup. So if you guys are interested, this might be a fun one that I can donate to the Discord basically. So if you guys are interested in trying this model out, let me know. I think it might be kind of fun to make some characters. Just don't turn around and sell it would be the only thing. I'm not selling them anywhere right now, but it'd be cool to see what you guys can do with them though. Okay, that's good enough for the moment. Let's add our brown spots real fast. Where am I at here? Curve, fur. Have a fur explosion. Set up our density to be the brown fur. Now it's only in the patches and nowhere else. This one I don't think we have to correct any weight painting on, so that's helpful. Get rid of the noise and frizz again. Oh yeah, one other change here. If you, this is back on the white fur again for just a second. If you change the amount of curve guides to follow, you can, it's hard to probably tell on your screen, but you can see how they flow differently. So the more you get, the smoother it'll be because it's averaging between a whole bunch of them. So anyway, that's what those do. You can pick how smooth to make it between other curves. All right. So now we just got these little ones. And again, keep in mind, it's going to be more full than that. But let's do some of the same setups. Let's do the trim here. Move that right after the interpolate, scale uniform. And here's where I'm gonna flip back and forth. So we had 0.018 for the hair length. I think we want to keep that the same. Otherwise, you'll have kind of a weird deal where the hairs stick out a lot more. And then we can turn up the density because we'll have to check our weight paints. So let's just try that same 200,000 that we started with on the other one. Keep in mind the preview is fully enabled, so this isn't going to be exactly the same. That one's actually double that, so let's just do that. 4. Okay. Kind of starting to look like a cow almost. Radius. We'll try our 0.00001 again. Same number as the other one. And then this one, these are such simple groups. These should be really easy to deal with. So let's turn our previews down so that Blender doesn't crash. And I'm going to save this because for some reason I can feel a crash coming, or it's trying to come. Where is... Again, seems counterintuitive, but take all of the guides off. And then looks like our settings are still here from the other one, so we're good to go there. Now just everywhere that these hairs are present, we're gonna try to add a bunch. The ear hair ones are always kind of annoying. It doesn't handle having curve guides so close to each other, but on opposite sides of the mesh. So I always end up needing like way too many of them. And you could handle it by just keeping this fur on the outside of the ear instead of having it on the inside too, but we'll be fine for now. Who's all hanging out in the chat? Anybody still here? What do we got? Looks like we got 7 people right now. That's awesome. Yeah. I appreciate you guys hanging out, doing this stuff with me. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, this weekend I want to test that GPU, and then I'm gonna keep working on these because the other 2 that I started are almost done. What else? Yeah, and before the stream ends for today, I'll show you guys the rig, and I'll explain how I got it. We won't actually rebuild one. I think that could be its own series. It's not simple. It's not awful, but it's just not like it's definitely not entertaining. So that would be one people would have to search for it, I think. But I'll explain how I use Rigify. It's a lot more flexible than people think it is because it allows you to combine parts. So if you have the samples of all the parts, there's just basically everything you need. Okay. So what you know what? Let's just disable our other hair curves. I'm finding myself not knowing where these are. So get rid of these. And these aren't as big of a deal because they just control these little groups, so they're not going to be a huge pain. But we want to make sure they have enough. And then we'll set our interpolation strands to like 2. For some of these small groups, they really don't need to have like 4 hairs. Little random belly patch. See, and like here, just as a side note, there's not hair on both sides. Doesn't matter. It's not causing any problems. Have the guides over there. Got some little tiny patches. Oh, those ones can go. That's just bad weight paint there. And a butt patch. See, and then you could also just remove the mirror and delete those. It's just really not going to make any difference. Let's add a couple more on this guy. Can't see some of these are redundant, so that's why those shoulder ones were there. Okay, and this will be kind of like the ear. Just follow the edge, do a few in the middle, and then this edge of this is super sharp. So if you want it to look good, you have to put extra ones around and on the edge. So if you do something like this, you'll be able to control it more. The wings really are just to cover it so it doesn't look strange. I'm gonna put just a few of these because I think we'll end up actually putting feathers on. Little tiny ones. Just to cover this better. It kind of looks cooler that way, I think. All right. Let's do that. And let's pull these out. These are just to make it look like it's not just a random hairless arm. Honestly, the easiest way to do this kind of thing, where it's a big tube like this, is just go from the front and lay it all down. And it's gonna clip into the wing. It's not a problem. Then go to the top, enable your X-ray mode so you can see, and then just realign these so that they follow the curvature of the piece you're building, like that. And again, they're clipping in, but not a big deal. You're gonna do this, pull these ones in, pull that one in. And as long as you get this shape to be set up this way so they're not turned in too much, then all you got to do is use this this puff brush to get them to expand away from the mesh again. So it's a lot easier to set up the shape without having to kind of tweak each one. All right. That's pretty good. Let's do some of our easy ones. Let's just pull the tail basically the same way we just did the wing. Puff it up. This one's going to be covered by feathers too, so we won't worry about it as much. And then the only thing that might get tricky with these, which is not a huge deal, but the the other hair particles, you're probably going to want to turn on the other ones for this, because you'd want to see what shape you have to tie into. Although, since they're different color, it probably won't matter if they look like they go a different direction. Strength's just a little too low. There we go. So I know these ones kind of went around the side. This one should just kind of hang down. These should hang down. These should hang down. Pretty straightforward. Yeah, so as far as feathers, I think what we'll do is Ahmed Design has offered to, well, let's see. I think he said he has a free feather pack. So I'm gonna go check those out after this stream. And we'll implement those on the next one. So next time we'll work with those, and I'll show you how I made the ones for that white character, that white version of the one that I had on the screen. We'll talk about those, how I made those, because there's multiple options. You guys can do all kinds of stuff with feathers and hair. Oops, need this side. That's where his hairs are. Ooh, that was way too strong. Let's do from the side a little more. There you go. But yeah, I think as far as feathers, we'll handle it on the next one, so I can go check out Ahmed's feather pack, see what it's got. So the biggest problem with hair, feathers, anything like that is they effectively add a lot of topology and a lot of rendering time, and you can't animate well with really heavy stuff like that turned on, so you hide it in the viewport and then you animate, so you can't see what it looks like the whole time, blah blah blah. So there's lower poly options for doing things like hair and feathers. So the way I did them on my other character was to just create a plane and then render an image of a feather that I built with hair curves. And that allows you to make low poly feathers, and then I just kind of manually placed all of them. You could do it with curves, you could do it a few other ways, but I manually placed them and then rigged them to the body rig. So I'll show you that next time. I think so. For the end of this one here, we'll put our hair materials on, and we will briefly talk about how the rig works, and then I'll maybe show you the other character in action. because this one will take a little bit of time to actually apply the rig and to I still have to place all the bones for it and everything, which wouldn't be a problem, but I am going to have to hop off of the stream here sooner than later, so we'll get these sculpted, we'll talk about the rig, and then next time we'll do feathers and whatever else, accessories, animations, whatever we want to do. Let's see, looks like a bunch of these curves are not used, so let's get rid of those. This one's not needed. Okay. Yeah, and I appreciate you letting me know that those feathers are available. I ended up buying a pack of like a ton of them for just a few dollars. So I'll collect them. I assume they're free to use. I think you said they were free, so I'll put them to use for sure. Okay. I'm gonna try to do this ear as painlessly as possible. Ears are just the most annoying thing with hair, I swear. So having all of these on the base of the head by the ear, go around the ear like this, will keep the shape of the head, and then having a few guides right at the base of the ear itself will help to keep that seam there. So this split will look pretty reasonable. Let's do that. Let's turn our strength down. Let's pull these out a little bit. Yeah, the real solution here for the hair inside of the ear is just to make a separate group. So maybe we'll come back and do that. Because see, they get all confused in here. If there's not enough guides, they'll just basically stick to the ones on the other side of it. And it wouldn't really matter, but they just look really confusing, kind of disorderly. So we can try to add more guides in here. And then I guess we'll turn this group down to use less guides. Let's do that. See, because if you go with one, they just go to their closest one. Let's maybe go with like 3 instead of 4. So yeah, they're just a little bit fuzzy in there. That's okay. We can come back and do that later. Let's just get it done and get our material on. Just kind of shape these. And the length of these guides doesn't matter. You can set them to whatever you want. But if they're too short, it's hard to be able to change the shape of them. And if they're too long, obviously like this, they just get in the way. And you can shorten the hair by shortening the curves, the curve guides. Oh, I'd have to see how the rest flow. Guess we can re-enable them now that we know where this hair group is versus that one. But I think having the color split is also going to help us with not having problems with them not lining up together, basically. Let's do that. Let's just maybe try to puff these. See if they're just all stuck. Nope, looks like they're just kind of confused in there. Okay. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I think we got all of these ones shaped up. Pretty cool for now. Oh, let's go back to sculpt mode. We'll do this. Select all curves, snap to deform surface, just for so it's out of the way. Okay. All right. So now let's check this out. So I'm going to rename these curves. This is going to be white fur And brown fur. Okay, it didn't want me to change that. Let me see why. Oh. White body fur. I bet you the other model I have in here has that name as well. And it looks like I switched those, of course. There we go. Fur, there. Okay, so let's see what they kind of look like. Looks like we've got hairs everywhere. So to really see how they look, we need to turn on at least some of the viewport. I turned on about 20%, about 0.2. Okay, now they're all white still. So we need to add materials. So let's go to our white one. And we'll just call this, because I know white fur is probably already a group on here. White body fur matte, that'll work. And then I'm going to use a hair shader. And we'll probably just do direct coloring here, honestly. I think it's easier to run than the melanin absorption ones. Okay, so now here it looks to me like the hair might be just a little thin, so I'm gonna increase it. And I know there aren't enough of them, so that's also part of the problem. But you can still see that pink through there a little bit. Although it is starting to look pretty cool, I will say. So let's try higher. Let's try like 0.5 for the hair. I just don't want it to run as slow. And this is the hair outside of the brown spots, keep in mind. So once we kind of see that pink color go away a little bit, then we'll know we're doing good. So yeah, like here on the nose, it's pretty obvious still that it's not white. So really these hairs might need to be just a lot thicker. Let's try that. Yeah, there we go. It depends on how you want it to look, but all this stuff just takes a lot of tweaking. Okay. And then here, since they're not shrink wrapped, I want to make them a little bit shorter again. I think they look a little too long because they're making them look puffy. It's adding thickness to his body. But let's get our brown fur turned on because I think then it's going to really pop. So we'll call this brown body fur matte. And we'll go to the hair shader again. Direct coloring. And we can kind of just play around with it. I think the roughness for this character should be high so that it looks kind of flat. It won't be as shiny. We can play with those in a second. Let's kind of make this a nice dark brown. Then let's change some of our parameters here. So I think we ended up with like 0.35 for the radius, 0.00035, and then turned on a lot more of these in the viewport. Yeah, there we go. So then the way they mix is going to kind of be up to weight painting and how you sculpt them. But I really like how the different groups kind of mix. And if you look up close, you can still see there's kind of a line in there. But if you look far away, the way the rendering kind of handles it, it just makes it look really cool where these edges transition like this. As it should. because I mean, theoretically, this is kind of realistic. How, you know, how the hair works. So let's now what would be cool is if you can play with the, say, the length of these or the thickness. Really the weight paint's probably the issue, but even here you can see just a little bit there's gaps between where the density is and is not filled in. So you might at this point go back and fill back in some extra weight painting. But what do we got here? Looks like we got a hair guide that's going the wrong direction. So yeah, if you're going to edit hair in the viewport, definitely don't leave these viewport amounts high. It will just slow it down really bad. Where are you at? There you go. Sculpt mode. Looks like we missed a hair group there. Yeah. So we'll come in and add a couple more. That, why is that so far? Looks like we lost one of our hair guides inside of the mesh. That's why that was looking weird. Okay. Sweet. So that's looking good. All right, last couple minutes here. I'll just talk about the rig. I'll do a whole series on Rigify. I just gotta plan it. I just gotta plan what's really useful for you guys. And that might be a good thing to talk about, like in the Discord, is what do you actually need to know. But here is the meta rig that I used for the other character. And obviously, as you can see, it's pretty close to fitting already. I started all of the characters, all three of these, from this one. But let's just examine this for a second. So I'll add the parts that we used here. So I've seen a lot of people rig stuff with just simple Rigify pieces, and I don't necessarily know why you would have to do that. Because I think these components that add up into these meta rigs are just super useful anyway. So they have this bird, this one's a horse, and then since the face, this is the horse face, there's only a few bones. There's a jaw, eyeballs, and then just the shape of the face, but there's no eye controls. There's no you can't do anything with the lips. It's very simple, so you can't close the eyes, I guess is my point. So I come in here then and I get the wolf. And so the problem with the wolf is, if you look at this shape doesn't really match the head of the deer or a horse or whatever. They're a lot longer proportionally, so you have to adjust the bones quite a bit, and doing that can cause some bugs with bone rolls and stuff. But that stuff we'll cover. Some of it I just deal with. Some of it I should figure out what to do better. But basically, this rig, in the simplest terms, is this plus all of this stuff here. Come on. Thank you. And then for this one, I actually removed the horse legs, even though they fit pretty nicely. And I took off the horse tail. And then this one, let's see, what did I think all I deleted here basically was the spine. And then we already had, here's kind of the shoulders. We already had hips from the horse rig, and we had shoulders in the front of the horse rig, so those could go. Okay, so now let's kind of just place it. I mean, you guys get the idea at this point. But I mean, that's essentially how I put this together. Oops, we don't want all those. We just want the tail. There. So these things properly combined and adjusted to fit the mesh better is how I got this. And you could, I mean, you can see the similarities. You wouldn't know they weren't a duplicate until you looked at it a little bit, but the only tricky things are you have to parent these. These were an extra bone that's not in the bird leg, so I created it, and then I parented it to the hips, to the pelvis bones here. And then the shoulders are the parent for the wings. And then you have to connect the head properly to the neck so that it generates everything the way you expect Rigify to work. But other than that, I mean, it's really pretty straightforward. So this is another thing. Like when these series are done, or if we need one in the middle, like if we do a follow along one, I want to provide these. There's a way, and I don't really know, I've never done it properly, but there's a way to create a basic like preset meta rig. So you could have a Peryton meta rig, and you could literally download it, put it in your armatures, and it would pop up in here as like creatures or something, and you'd have you know, Peryton, Centaur, whatever, the weird ones, the ones that are not just a basic component. The Minotaurs, I have one for those. So there's a lot of options there. But sometime I might just make a pack of meta rigs that I can give out to people on the channel. And then, so that's, make sure this is his. So that's what I did to make it. I'll have a whole series on that because there's a lot of errors you run into, and there's a lot of really finicky stuff. Once you get it done, Rigify is great. And all methods of rigging take some amount of pain. There aren't any that are just like completely good to go. So let's we don't need this in this file, so I'll delete it. Let's preview this guy one last time here. We'll turn up all the hair. I have no idea what the render settings are on right now, so we'll just look at it in the viewport here, but that should be good enough. We only have to wait about 10 seconds with this GPU anyway to get a basically good as render image. We don't have a plane. A plane on the floor will help to bounce light properly. So sometimes your renders might look a little weird. Well, how often have you seen an object that's just hovering in the air? So some of the lighting has to come from the ground below the object. So I'll just add a pretty high roughness, kind of generic colored plane, which I'm sure you guys are used to seeing from the community posts lately. I just don't have them put into the worlds yet. Actually, let's do something that complements the green better. Let's do something more like a kind of weird red. That should be okay. I don't want it to impact the color of the model, but for the lighting, we got a sun. We can turn that angle up a little. That'll help. And then we'll make the... Just put the noise threshold to final render. Why not, right? Oops. Oop, wrong one. There we go. Where's our camera? Yeah, maybe I'll change this thumbnail out one day, but he doesn't even have eyes yet. So we gotta wait till he has eyes. So yeah, I mean there's what he's looking like now. It's pretty cool. If we render this with, let's just do a little bit nicer than that. Let's just do 1440p. That'll work. Let's move this out of the way a little. Yeah, so next parts, we'll actually apply the rig. I was hoping to kind of do some more of that today, but you know, it just takes as long as it takes. That's all there is to it. We'll cover it all eventually. We'll have to get some eyes for him. You know, really, we need better lighting than this. Let's just do the typical sky texture shading. Make the sun fairly large. Give it a fairly high elevation so it's normal. I always turn the air down, turn the dust down. Ozone can be whatever. Let's scale this plane up a lot. Maybe make it a little bit darker. Yeah, that's cool. Cool. So, I always get bothered trying to make renders to use. I mean, they're cool to see how the hair looks and stuff, but to actually use this will bother me because it doesn't have eyes. Like, some stuff just isn't done yet, and that really irritates me. But let's try to cut a render, because also in the viewport, you really, even with a fast computer, you really don't get an idea of what the hair looks like. And we can also play around with the parameters of these hair materials, because they make a lot of difference too. So we could make the roughness different on the different colored patches. There's a lot of ways to kind of make it pop in a different way. Those are going to be a lot slower if we do it that way, though. Let's reset that to its default. But no, I think this thing's looking cool. I'm gonna go back to solid view here, and then we'll just try to render this and see what the hair looks like real quick. I think it's looking cool. I really like how it mixes. And the interesting part of that too is how the white mixes on the top, because the hair is hanging down, and then the brown mixes, you know, on the bottom of the groups. So it's kind of a cool effect. But that's one reason that I like to use these hair systems, because you can get some of these effects and you can see the skin in there. We'll have to correct that, but we'll do it later. But like this is a kind of a realistic effect that just happens. And I'm not good at drawing or painting anymore. Maybe I was at one time, maybe not, but I'm definitely not now. So anywhere you wanted this kind of mixing, you would have to know how to do that on your texturing work. And you know, this kind of just does it for you. And then theoretically, you could probably take these and render this somehow and then reapply these as image textures. I've seen people do that. I even saw somebody that wrote a script that tried to stay perpendicular to the model and like basically bake the hair, and that kind of worked. So there's ways we can do it, but no, I think this is cool. So next time, rigging, eyeballs, small adjustments, you know, whatever else we can come up with that we want to do with it. Let's turn this one off, and then I'll show this one again. Why is your meta rig trying to escape? Oh, it's not. I just had moved her. Okay, that's no big deal. What is that? Ah, that's funny. That's a part that comes with the mouth. It's not relevant. Let's put this back to 0. Okay. So I took the one that we've been working on in here, and kind of started with it, and then just made this. This is a different version. I wanted to make a few different versions. Ideally, in the stories, there will be multiple that are just different characters. So here is my feather. It looks complex, but it's not. This is it. That's all there is. So this thing's, what does it say? 81 vertices? Something like that. Just nothing to it. So what's cool is you can make these little planes, and that's what every single one of these is, just a set of those. And we'll do this. We'll actually do this next time. I know I thought we were going to this time, but I'm just kind of running out of time. So we'll I'll show you how to put these together. You can make different variations of them, and since it's just a plane, it's really easy to just scale this to whatever shape you want. But in addition to that, you can model it. So if you really wanted, let's do an edge loop here. If you really wanted to have something bent in any direction, it's nice and easy. If you had to weight paint these, like if you're doing some simulations or something, there's not a lot of vertices here, so it's going to be really easy to simulate. So if you wanted to do the feathers kind of blowing around, that would be not really very hard. So it's kind of a interesting method. They don't actually have thickness, so what I did was bend them out of plane, essentially like this, so that when I laid them in, I could turn them. There, kind of show you that way. I can turn them, and they have sort of a thickness to them instead of being just a flat set of them. But I think that looks better than just having them be like kind of one picture on a plane. So yeah, that's the method I used. Ahmed, who's been in the chat, said he has a pack of feathers on ArtStation, so I will go find that, because at very least we might use some of those to cover up this wing. So I think the last step this one needs is just to scatter smaller feathers on this big wing thing here, because I mean, just with the hair, I think it looks a little strange, so it needs to have some extra feathers. And then we'll fill in the gaps behind here with another small set of those. So that'll be next time, but that'll give me a chance to go find those feathers. And then these are cool. So I don't have these weight painted to these secondary bones here, but what you can see is that it all moves together. I need to turn her hair off. Not the feathers, the hair. See, the feathers run fine, the hair is terrible. Turn off the fur, there we go. So they move, each section is weight painted to one part of the bone. And then these are still individual sets of these. They're just grouped. So I can unjoin them if I have to, but yeah, I mean, that's the theory. That's what we'll be doing. You can kind of see where I got that post from the other day from. And then the mouth is just one I downloaded I could model teeth if I wanted to. I just don't really want to. And this one was a good price, and it was decent quality. So she's got some kind of horrifying fangs there. And there's a bunch of annoying stuff I still need to fix, like inside the mouth. The mesh is in the way of the mouth. It won't really matter. I don't plan on needing to see that too much, but it's just not complete yet. Yeah, I don't know. So let me know what you guys think about those. Let me know what you think about the one we've been working on. I'm gonna go grab those feathers for next time. We'll do feathers and apply the rig, and then we'll see about maybe posting the thing if you guys want to try it out or whatever. But for now, I got to get going. I appreciate everyone for being here. These have been doing well, you know, relatively for me, so it's been a lot of fun to have some people hanging out. Watch for the 5070 Ti video. That should be like maybe tonight, otherwise probably tomorrow. Because I might just continue doing some work on these. I have some animations that I'm also trying to accomplish while doing the other videos. So it'll be cool. There's a lot of stuff going on over here, but yeah, watch for that test soon, and then we'll see you on the next stream. Thanks for being here, guys, and that's it for now. All right, so see you soon.